The therapy room was quiet. The couples session had barely begun.
Right.
The therapist had probably just sat down with their notepad. And just like that, within the first 60 seconds, a Hollywood engagement shattered, leaving a massive star completely blindsided. Welcome to Starscope Report.
Yes, welcome.
Join us as we uncover Hollywood drama, music industry shakeups, and viral influencer scandals. From red carpet surprises to social media controversies, we dive deep into the stories behind the fame.
And today, we are dissecting a headline that has genuinely sent shockwaves through the entertainment world.
Oh, absolutely.
Courteney Cox and Snow Patrol musician Johnny McDaid have reportedly split, which, closes the curtain on this deeply unconventional romance that lasted more than a decade.
Yeah, and we're not just skimming the surface here. We are synthesizing the latest reports from Extra TV, The Times of India, and the Express Tribune.
The big ones, yeah.
Right. But to truly understand this breaking news, we are deep diving into historical interviews from podcasts and talk shows. Because when you look at this 13-year relationship from start to finish, the sheer emotional whiplash is wild.
It really is. It's a profound case study in the architecture of modern celebrity relationships, honestly. We're looking at a partnership that navigated these cinematic highs, absolutely devastating lows, and then a totally reinvented middle ground.
A completely different way of doing things.
Exactly. So as you listen today, I want you to put yourself in their shoes. Consider how you would handle the most intimate aspects of your romance when you're living under the absolute, unforgiving microscope of fame.
Okay, so let's unpack this from the very beginning, because the origin story feels like it was ripped straight out of a rom-com script, honestly.
It really does.
To understand how everything unraveled in June of 2026, we have to rewind to late 2013. Picture the scene. We're in Los Angeles. Courteney Cox is hosting this massive, star-studded house party.
And, the context of this era is crucial. Cox isn't just a beloved sitcom star at this point. She's a seasoned Hollywood powerhouse.
Yeah, directing and producing and all of it.
Right. She's executive producing her hit show, Cougar Town. Her world is highly curated. And into this world walks pop superstar Ed Sheeran, who decides to bring along his close friend and collaborator, Johnny McDaid.
And for those who might not know, McDaid is a Northern Irish musician. He is a key member of the band Snow Patrol and just a wildly successful songwriter.
Oh, insanely successful.
Yeah, and at the time, he was actually living in LA with Sheeran to work on Sheeran's second album. So you have this indie rock, introspective songwriter dropped into the ultimate Hollywood mixer.
Which sets up this fascinating collision of worlds, right? So Cox spots McDaid across the room. He's sitting at a piano, just casually playing music amidst this chaotic A-list party.
Like you do.
Right, like you do. And she later recounted on the Howard Stern show that she was instantly captivated. Like, she specifically zeroed in on his intense eyes and thought he was stunningly handsome.
But here's where it gets really interesting to me. Because in the real world, you might just walk up to the guy at the piano and introduce yourself.
Yeah, you just say hi.
Exactly. But in the A-list bubble, there's this bizarre layer of insulation. They don't speak. They don't exchange numbers.
No, of course not.
Instead, Cox casually mentions to her friend, actress Isla Fisher, that she's interested in the piano player. Isla Fisher then relays this to her then-husband, Sacha Baron Cohen.
The layers of celebrity separation here are just remarkable. It's so Hollywood.
Right. Like Sacha Baron Cohen, the man famous for playing Borat marches right up to McDaid. He plays the ultimate Hollywood wingman and literally passes along the message that Courteney Cox has a crush on him.
It's amazing.
It's like a high-stakes game of telephone, but instead of a whispered secret, the prize at the end is a diamond ring.
Well, eventually, yeah. And the absurdity of the delivery method aside, the message lands perfectly. McDaid reaches out the very next day.
Oh, wow. So he didn't waste any time.
Not at all. They go on a date, and the connection is instantaneous. They become completely inseparable, right away. By March 2014, they make their red carpet debut at a Cinemagic event in Los Angeles.
Okay.
And by June 2014, a mere 9 months after that initial house party, they are officially engaged to be married.
Which is light speed. The public and the media immediately became obsessed with this transatlantic power couple.
Oh, they couldn't get enough of them.
But looking at that timeline, I have to ask you, does moving this fast in that pressurized A-list bubble inherently doom a relationship? Or is it just the reality of an industry where everything from movie production to romance just happens at warp speed?
I wouldn't say it inherently dooms it, but it creates a really fragile scaffolding.
Yeah.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, You have to look at the immense contrasting pressures they were under.
Right, completely different worlds.
Exactly. You have two highly successful, highly driven people operating in entirely different spheres of the entertainment industry. It wasn't just about moving fast. It was about merging two massive moving trains.
Because Cox is managing a sprawling acting, producing, and real estate empire in Los Angeles, her roots are deeply planted in Hollywood soil.
Yes. While McDade's career requires him to be a global nomad, he's traveling the world, collaborating with artists like Pink and Robbie Williams, and co-writing some of Ed Sheeran's biggest tracks in studios across London and Nashville.
So he's constantly on the move.
Right. Their individual lives were incredibly exciting, but the foundation they were building this rapid engagement on was fundamentally unstable.
That makes a lot of sense.
They were attempting to seamlessly merge a deeply rooted LA lifestyle with a transient European music career, all while the paparazzi documented and scrutinized every single move they made.
Which is just the perfect recipe for a spectacular collision. Because if you think the beginning of their relationship was a fairy tale, wait till you hear what came next. It's a shocking twist nobody saw coming in a place that is literally meant for healing.
Yeah, this part is intense.
But before we get into the fallout, if you're loving these deep dives into Hollywood's biggest twists, make sure you're subscribed. We've got even crazier stories ahead.
So that brings us to the breaking point. By late 2015, the cracks in that fragile scaffolding we just talked about were becoming impossible to ignore.
I can imagine.
Yeah, the geographical distance, the demanding schedules, and the sheer logistical weight of combining their lives had taken a massive toll. So they make a mature, proactive choice. They schedule a couples therapy session.
Which is exactly what you're supposed to do. You go to therapy to establish a safe space. You go to communicate, to unpack your baggage, and to collaboratively find a path forward.
Right. But the path forward they found wasn't collaborative.
Okay, wait, what?
According to a deeply candid revelation Cox made in 2024 on the Many Questions podcast, McDaid broke up with her in the very first minute of that therapy session.
No way. The first minute.
First 60 seconds, no preamble, no warning. She stated she was completely blindsided and plunged into immense pain.
Okay, I have to stop you right there and push back on this. First 60 seconds. That doesn't sound like therapy. That sounds like an ambush.
It does sound like that.
How is that not just incredibly cruel? You don't even let the therapist sit down and open their notebook before pulling the ripcord. Why even bother showing up to the session if your mind is already made up?
Look, I completely understand why it feels that way, and it's entirely natural to view it as a betrayal of the therapeutic process.
Because it is.
Well, let's look at the psychology of what was actually happening beneath the surface, though. What's fascinating here is how Cox herself eventually processed and framed that exact moment. Even though she was devastated at the time, she later referred to his decision as bold and brave.
Bold and brave to dump your fiancé in minute one. I mean, that is a very generous interpretation of getting dumped.
It is. It requires a lot of emotional maturity to see it that way, yes.
Yeah.
But she realized that he wasn't doing it to be malicious. He was doing it out of extreme self-preservation.
Okay, how so?
Well, he was in so much pain from the toxic dynamics of the relationship that he couldn't even entertain the performative process of traditional therapy.
Ah, I see.
He knew the core was broken, and engaging in weeks of agonizing sessions would only prolong the suffering. He had to establish a hard boundary immediately. And psychologically speaking, this brutal, immediate severing of the relationship was actually the catalyst for the most transformative growth Cox would experience.
How does getting blindsided lead to transformative growth, though? That just sounds like a recipe for trauma, not enlightenment.
Because it forces a complete and total reset. It removes all distractions. During an incredibly vulnerable episode of Running Wild with Bear Grylls, Cox reflected deeply on this exact period.
Wait, on the Bear Grylls show?
Yeah, out in the wilderness.
Mm-hmm.
She admitted that she had brought a lot of unexamined baggage into the relationship, specifically citing severe codependency and people-pleasing tendencies.
Oh, wow. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So she was constantly trying to manage his feelings or fix the situation externally rather than looking inward at her own needs. Because people-pleasing is ultimately a control mechanism, right? You try to make everyone around you happy so you don't have to deal with your own anxiety.
That is a phenomenal way to articulate it. Yes, it's about control. And Cox recognized this about herself. She also noted something crucial about McDaid.
What was that?
She realized that he held a very specific, almost fragile view of love. She made it clear this wasn't just some cultural stereotype of the brooding Northern Irish musician, but his own deeply personal worldview.
Interesting.
She said he believes love is precious. like something that must be actively coddled and protected.
And if you're a Hollywood people pleaser, constantly putting out fires and managing optics, you probably aren't coddling the romance. You're just trying to keep the train on the tracks.
Precisely. She admitted she simply didn't know how to regard love the way he did at that time. So that jarring therapy breakup was the ultimate shock to her system.
A total wake-up call.
Yeah. It stripped away the safety net of the engagement and forced her to finally look in the mirror. It forced her to establish her own personal boundaries and understand her own operational mode in relationships, rather than just twisting herself into knots trying to please her partner.
Wow. You walk in expecting to work on us, and you walk out realizing you have to completely rebuild me.
It's the hardest kind of work, but it really is the only way to break a toxic cycle.
But what makes this story so compelling is that the timeline doesn't end in that therapist's office.
No, it doesn't.
They don't just walk away forever. Later in the deep dive, we'll talk about the highly unconventional arrangement they made to save their romance, and then the final breaking point that ended it all.
Which brings us to the next massive pivot in their journey. So after 6 months of agonizing separation, 6 months of doing that deep, individual psychological work, the couple reunites in 2016.
And it wasn't a quiet reunion either. They were spotted having lunch, and then they completely solidified the rumors with a very public kiss.
Oh yeah, the paparazzi were all over it.
The media goes wild, expecting a new wedding date to drop any second. But here's the fascinating part. They actively choose not to get re-engaged. They refuse the ring.
They completely dismantled the traditional architecture of their relationship and started from scratch.
They really did. During an appearance on the Ellen DeGeneres show in 2019, Cox was very direct about this new setup.
What did she say?
She explicitly stated to the audience, "He's not my fiancé." They decided they were just going to be together without the label, without the legal binding, and she claimed it was actually better than it was before.
And if you think about the intense pressure cooker of their first go-around, you can see why shedding those labels would feel incredibly liberating.
For sure.
They decided to just be married in the heart, which is the exact phrase she used in an interview with People magazine. She said every morning they woke up and looked at each other. That was their version of a wedding. A daily active choice to stay.
So essentially, they downgraded their relationship software to an earlier, more stable version to keep it from crashing.
I like that.
Yeah, they realized the fiancé expansion pack was full of bugs. You know, the expectations, the wedding planning, the public performance of being engaged. It was overwhelming their system, so they rolled back to a beta version just existing together.
I love that software metaphor because it perfectly illustrates the mechanics of what they did. They removed the heavy processing load of societal expectations to see if the raw core connection could survive on its own operating system.
But let's look at the actual day-to-day logistics of this stable version, because it doesn't sound very stable to me at all.
How so?
Well, they are living on entirely different continents. Courtney's based in LA, actively raising her daughter, launching a home products line called Home Court, and starring in major projects like the new Scream franchise movies and that horror comedy series, Shining Vale.
Right, she's incredibly busy. Meanwhile, Johnny is anchored mostly in London. He's producing and writing for massive global artists.
Yeah, didn't he write that huge Ed Sheeran song?
Yes. During this exact period, he co-writes Ed Sheeran's Shape of You, which casually becomes the most streamed song in Spotify history.
Just casually. So they are living these massive, highly demanding, wildly successful lives, but they are an ocean apart.
A literal ocean.
Which forces me to ask, can a relationship truly survive indefinitely on different continents and different lives without a formal anchor? Or is an arrangement like that just a slow, decade-long fade-out disguised as enlightenment?
It is an incredibly precarious balancing act. When you rely solely on being married in the heart, you are entirely dependent on emotional proximity because you lack physical and structural proximity.
Right.
You have two people who have successfully maintained a profound emotional bond, but their day-to-day realities, their time zones, their morning routines, their immediate social circles are fundamentally separate.
And then the universe throws the ultimate stress test at their system.
Yes, the COVID-19 pandemic. Border closures and international travel restrictions kept them physically apart for 9 straight months.
9 months without seeing your partner? I mean, for someone whose love language is allegedly about coddling and presence, that has to be devastating. You can't sustain a relationship on FaceTime alone.
You really can't. When you combine the immense geography, a prolonged forced separation, and the natural relentless evolution of personal growth over a decade, the foundation begins to thin out.
It's just inevitable.
It wasn't necessarily a fiery crash like the therapy room breakup. It was the reality that two parallel paths, no matter how much they respect each other, will eventually begin to naturally diverge if they aren't actively pulled together by shared daily experiences.
Which brings us to the undeniable present day. In June 2026, reports surface originally breaking in the Daily Mail and quickly corroborated by outlets like Extra TV and the Express Tribune that Courteney Cox and Johnny McDaid have quietly, finally separated.
Wow.
And the detail that really stands out to me, they apparently split more than 6 months prior to the news even breaking.
Which just highlights how separate their lives had become. Their last public appearance together was all the way back in September 2025 at the U.S. Open.
Exactly. Sources are telling the media that the parting was entirely amicable. There's no dramatic therapy room ambush this time.
Just a quiet ending.
Yeah. Friends of the couple simply cited that it was a case of living different lives. There are even reports suggesting McDaid is already in the early stages of a new relationship, which just confirms the finality of it all.
It is always a jarring reality for the public to process when a long-term fixture in pop culture quietly dissolves. Fans are legitimately mourning the end of this romance online
I've seen the comments, yeah.
because despite its highly unconventional nature, or perhaps because of it, it was one of Hollywood's most fascinating, longest-running modern relationships.
It really is the end of an era for a couple that tried with everything they had to do things their own way. And hey, stay tuned and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next in the ever-shifting world of pop culture.
As we wrap up this deep dive, there is a broader, almost philosophical thread here that is worth mulling over.
What's that?
We saw Courtney and Johnny intentionally remove the traditional labels. They uninstalled the expectation of marriage to relieve the crushing pressure that broke them the first time.
Right.
But you have to wonder, when high-profile couples remove those traditional labels and structural expectations to just be together, does it actually relieve the pressure, or does it simply remove the safety net when the inevitable turbulence hits?
That's a great question.
Does living married in the heart truly give you the freedom to thrive, or does it just make it that much easier to quietly, painlessly walk away when your parallel lives finally drift too far apart?
It's definitely something to think about. You've been listening to Starscope Report, where we uncover the stories shaping Hollywood, music, and pop culture. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that keep the stars shining. Remember, you can have all the A-list wingmen in the world, and you can strip away every traditional label to protect your heart, but sometimes a relationship is exactly like that 60-second therapy session. You just have to know when the system has crashed, and it's finally time to pull the ripcord.